Salam and welcome to part number 207 of this fabulous book, Muhammad Sal'lal'laa'hu wasallam, his life based on the earlier sources. And we are busy with chapter number 64, which is the chapter called The Necklace, and it's part 207. And we continue from a part where Aisha radiallahu anha lost the necklace. The entire army had gone. She was sleeping under the palm tree. In that a person called Safwan came, he found her, he said, "This is the wife of Rasulullah, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." And then he immediately stopped, put her on the camel, and then he started pulling the camel back, and he started walking in the direction of where the army is going to bring her into safety, right? So meanwhile, the army which had halted there, they did not yet realize that Aisha radiallahu anha was left behind. Because you must remember, when they take this howdah on the camel, the job of the workers, you must think of them as porters or waiters. They see the howdah, the camel sits down, they take the howdah out, they put it on the ground, and they walk away. Because the camp of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is different from other people. The camp of the woman, where the woman sits, is different from where the other men are sitting. So they would come, put that down, and they will continue. They do the other errands, right? So on the army's arrival there, Aisha radiallahu anha's howdah had been lifted from its mount and placed on the ground. And when she did not emerge from it, they assumed that she was sleeping. Great was the astonishment when, towards the end of the halt, after the men had rested, she rode in the camp led by Safwan. So now in front of the entire army, they thought that she was in the howdah fast asleep, and in front of the, as the people are just sitting in the siesta and relaxing, and they see two people coming, one camel, one person, Safwan, is pulling the camel, and on the top of the camel, there's no howdah, because then it's Aisha radiallahu anha was sitting on top of the camel, obviously with a veil. And now they all got a shock. This is a time when rumors started to spread. This is where you distinguish the hypocrites from the real sincere believers, right? So, great was the astonishment when towards the end of the halt, after the men had rested, Aisha radiallahu anha rode into the camp led by Safwan radiallahu anhu. That was the beginning of a scandal which was to shake Medina like an earthquake. It was so devastating. It was like headline news. That was the only thing people could talk about for weeks and for weeks. And the tongues of the hypocrites were not slow in start. The tongues of the hypocrites were now wagging. They were happy. And this was fiery information. And this was the latest hot news. And even those who did not know about it, everyone was just spreading. It was like viral news. It was the internet viral news. But for the moment, the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu anha and most of the companions were quite unaware of the trouble that lay ahead. Meanwhile, life continued as normal. There was nothing unusual. Right? Carry on. The spoils were divided as usual, and one of the captives was Juwayriyah, the daughter of Harith, chief of the defeated clan. She fell to the lot of a helper, one of the Ansar, who had fixed a high price for her ransom. She was a beautiful woman, plus she was the daughter of a chief, so she was like a princess. Her father is the king, and she is the princess, a beautiful princess. And she came to the Prophet ﷺ to ask for his intervention on her behalf. He was on that day in the apartment of Aisha radiallahu anha, who opened the door to her and who said afterwards, recounting what had taken place. And this is what Aisha radiallahu anha had to say. She was a woman of great loveliness and great beauty. No man, if any person had to look at her, that man would be captivated by her beauty. And when I saw her as a woman, when I saw her at the door of my room, I was filled with misgivings. I had serious misapprehensions in my mind, for I knew that the Prophet ﷺ would see in her what I saw in her. She entered unto him and said, and this is what Juwayriyah said to the Nabi ﷺ, O Messenger of God, Ya Rasulullah, I am Juwayriyah, the daughter of Harith, the Lord of his people. Well, you know the distress that has fallen upon me, and I have come to ask your help in the matter of my ransom. And the Prophet ﷺ replied, would you have something better than that? And she asked, what could be better than that, Ya Rasulullah? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that I would pay your ransom and I would also marry you. What an amazing offer. What an amazing offer. So Juwayriyah radiallahu anha gladly accepted his offer, but the marriage had not yet taken place when her father arrived with some camels for her ransom. Her father came with camels to ransom his daughter. They were not the full number he had originally intended to offer, excuse me, for in the valley of Aqiq, shortly before reaching the oasis, he had taken a last look at the fine animals and had been so smitten with admiration for two of them that he had separated them from the others and hidden them in one of the passes of the valley, unable to bring himself to part with them. So some of his prized camels, he said, there's no ways I'm going to give them to ransom for my daughter. They are too beautiful. They are too beautiful camels. So some of the camels, he hid them away. The remainder he took to the Prophet ﷺ and said, and I quote, O Muhammad, thou hast captured my daughter, and here is her ransom. And the Prophet ﷺ told him, and this guy got a shock. Prophet ﷺ told him, but where are those two camels which you did hide in Aqiq? Subhanallah. And he went on, the Prophet ﷺ went on to describe in exact detail the pass, the cave, or the valley in which the two precious camels were hidden and tethered. And then Harith, the chief, said, I testify that there is no God but God, and thou art Muhammad, the messenger of God. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad abdu wa rasulullah. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told him that this is what you did, you took the prized camels, you hid them away in the valley, and the chief said, no one knew about this. No one, that the only way you can know is that you are a divinely appointed messenger. Someone told you that about the unseen that nobody knows about. Subhanallah. And two of his sons also entered Islam with him. He sent for the two camels and gave them with the rest to the Prophet ﷺ, who restored his daughter to him. Then she herself entered Islam, Juwayriyah herself entered Islam, and the Prophet ﷺ asked her father to give her to him in marriage, which he did, and an apartment was built for her. When it became known that the Bani Mustalik were now the Prophet ﷺ's kinsmen by marriage, they are now the families of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Both the Ansar and the Muhajirin, they released all their prisoners. About 100 families were released, and in later years, Aisha radiallahu anha said, I know of no woman who was a greater blessing to her people than this particular woman. Because of her, so many of the people were free. Now we go to chapter number 65, which is known as the lie. And let's see now how the scandal and the rumors are spreading. Not long after her return to Medina, Aisha radiallahu anha fell ill. By that time, the slander that the hypocrites had whispered against herself and Safwan was being repeated throughout the city, but yet Aisha was not aware of it. Right? They hid it from her. Even her parents hid it from her. Few took it seriously, though amongst those who did was her own cousin, Mista, of the clan of Muttalib. But whether they believed it or not, everyone knew of it except herself. She was nonetheless conscious of a certain reserve or coldness on the part of the Prophet ﷺ, and she missed the loving attention which he had shown her in other illnesses. In other times when she was sick, he used to be very, very concerned, very comforting, very loving. This time he used to just come just professionally. How's everything? Everything okay? And then he would go away, and she said, now, what's going on? What's going? Maybe he's got something on his head. But she noticed there was a bit of a difference in his demeanor, in his interaction with her. So he would come into the room and say to those who were nursing her. So he wasn't even talking directly to Aisha radiallahu anha. He would talk to those nurses and say, how are you all today? Simply including her with others. So he would just generally ask the entire room, how is everyone here today? Khalas. So, and then he would go. So deeply wounded, Aisha would feel about what's wrong, what's happening. But she was too proud to complain. She asked his permission to go to her parents' house where her mother could nurse her. And the Prophet ﷺ, as you wish, go to your parents' house, that's fine, no problem. Excuse me. To recount what took place in Aisha radiallahu anha's own words, and she said, and I quote, I went to my mother without any knowledge of what was being said, and recovered from my illness some 20 days later. Then one evening, I went out with the mother of Mistah. Her mother was the sister of my father's mother, and as she was walking beside me, she stumbled over her gown and exclaimed, and she now started insulting or rebuking that Mistah, and she said, "May Mistah stumble, God's life." And I said, that was not a nice thing to say of a man of the emigrants, of the Muhajirin who fought at Badr. This is a Badri fellow you are talking about. Why are you talking in such a harsh way about him? And then this lady then said, "Oh, daughter of Abu Bakr, can it be that you have not heard of these rumors? Are you so, you don't know what is going on? Don't you know what people are talking about you?" And Aisha radiallahu anha asked, "What news? What are you talking about?" And then she told me what the slanderers had said and how people were repeating it, that that she and this man had committed adultery, astaghfirullah, and she could not believe her ears, that there was something going on between the two of them, whether it is adultery or some other non-halal type of interaction, and she was in a state of shock, and she asked, how can this be so? Is this really what they are saying? How can they even think of such a thing, right? So I said, how can this be so? I said, by God, it is indeed. And this lady said, yes, of course, that is exactly what they are saying. I'm telling you the truth is, I'm standing here, this is what the people are saying. And I returned home in tears, and I wept, and I wept, and I wept, until I thought that my weeping would split my liver. And then I told my mother, God forgive thee. People talk their talk, and you did not even tell me one word of this? How could you hide such a thing from me? And my mother said, oh, my little daughter, don't take it so harshly, for there is seldom a beautiful woman married to a man who loves her so much, but her fellow wives are full of gossip about her, and others repeat what they say. So Aisha radiallahu anha then said, so I lay awake the whole of the night, and my tears flowed without stopping. A very, very traumatic way for her to now understand, or for the news to now reach her ears, that this is what the people are saying. You were innocently, Safwan found you lost in the desert. He innocently brought you into the camp, and people's tongues were wagging. People, what is she doing with that man? People's tongues were wagging. No one saw anything. There was no accusation of any wrongdoing. He helped in a woman who was abandoned on the side of the road. What is wrong with that? But the hypocrites and the people full of gossip, they started. And we see this in our community as well. You see someone talking to another person, oh, maybe they are jolling, they're having a good time together. So the people who are wagging their tongues, please remember the great difficulty and harm that you are causing to community. And it is a thing of ego and arrogance to say, I am better than you. You know, they want to drag people down. They want to bring people down without any evidence. And this shows that we are hearing the story of an amazing woman, our mother, the beloved wife of Aisha radiallahu anha. But this happens in today's time. It's happening throughout the generations. It doesn't matter what society you're living in what community you are in, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, whether you can be white, black, American, Russian, it doesn't matter. It happens in every society, because this is the nature of human beings. And this is where we need to control the tongue and control the effects of gossiping and especially now with social media, it is even more devastating. It is even more cruel. It is even more viral. It can go viral without verifying the news. And now, especially with AI, artificial intelligence, people are now putting avatars. They're putting people's, if you have been watching the news recently, young girls in school, people are taking their photos and putting them on pornography sites, or putting them in very uncompromising situations. And some youth, sadly have committed suicide, or caused other types of personal problems to them. Because how do you combat that? So please understand that this is a powerful lesson that we are learning from this, that the spread of gossiping, and especially now that we're living in the 21st century, where it is so easy just to press a button. You don't even have to go to a social function to hear the gossip. It's coming into your hand, into your pocket. If you're sitting in your bedroom, you're laying down, you are looking at gossip on your phone, and then unfortunately, what do? We press the forward button. We spread it to everyone else, because the hotter the tale, the more juicy the tale, the quicker we are to press the button, without realizing that sometimes the more juicy the tale, the more false it is, the more lies that there are. But we are saying, hey, did you hear the latest news? Press the forward button, put it on this group, put it on that group, put it on Instagram, put it on Telegram, put it on LinkedIn, put it on YouTube, put it on TikTok, put it everywhere, destroy, put it on Facebook, destroy, tarnish the reputation of that person, and that's how falsehood spreads. So as Muslims, we need to spread the truth. And if you see something falsehood, we must always ask yourself, verify the truth. And this is not only to do with social media or gossip, it also got to do with the truth about international news. If we see that one country is doing something, or one person has said something, or one president has said this, or one celebrity has said this, today with media manipulation and media propaganda, and especially with artificial intelligence, the AI tools, and chat, GBT, and all of these other things, we don't even know if we are living in a real world. It seems as if we're living in a fake world, surrounded by fake people. So we need to ask ourselves, where is the reality? Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.